Hi, good afternoon. I am Cholo Javier and I am here to share with you my research about organizational resilience among private corporations in the National Capital Region of the Philippines. Specifically, my research is about the influence of leadership and culture, networks and relationships, and change readiness to organizational resilience in terms of rapidity of response. Organizational resilience is commonly defined as the ability of organizations to bounce back and move forward after experiencing a crisis according to Ducic, 2020. And crisis is anything that threatens an organization's product line, business unit, well-being of its stakeholders, reputation, or financial performance. In 2020 alone, most businesses experienced a worldwide crisis in the form of a pandemic. In the Philippines, more than 2,000 establishments were forced to close down because of the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Because of that, I would like to know how organizations can future-proof their operations by becoming more resilient. In line with that thought, I would like to know how do the factors of organizational resilience, which are leadership and culture, networks and relationships, and change readiness affect the rapidity of response among private corporations in the National Capital Region? The questions that I would like to answer are the following. First is, what is the extent of influence of leadership and culture on rapidity of response? Second, what is the extent of influence of networks and relationships on rapidity of response? Third, what is the extent of influence of change readiness on rapidity of response? And lastly, what is the extent of influence of all the factors of organizational resilience on rapidity of response? This is the operational framework that was observed during the study. It was adapted from Brown, et al., 2017, Whitman, et al., 2013, Cantor and Acerise, 2012 and Tierney, 2003. The following hypotheses were tested. First, leadership and culture influence rapidity of response. Second, networks and relationships influence rapidity of response. Third, change readiness influences rapidity of response and, lastly, all factors of organizational resilience influence rapidity of response. In terms of methodology, the research targeted Philippine-based private corporations with main offices in the National Capital Region. The research employed a causal research design since the researcher wanted to determine if there is a relationship between the factors, as the independent variables and rapidity of response as the dependent variable. The research made use of self-constructed online survey questionnaire consisting of 36 questions. The organizational resilience indicators were derived from the study of Brown, et al., 2017, and Whitman, et al., 2013, while the rapidity of response questions were derived from Samsudin, et al., 2018. Specifically, the target respondents must be managerial employees, and the sample size considered for the research is 384. I will now share the results. Out of the required sample size of 384, only 209 responses were collected due to a low rate of return and limited survey collection time frame. Of this number, only 175 were considered to be qualified responses since 4% was the abandonment rate and 18% were disqualified. As for the descriptive factors, majority of the respondents were middle managers with a count of 107 or 61.1%, while the others were senior managers with 51 or 29.1%, and those that belonged to the executive management team with 17 or 9.7%. The industries where most respondents came from were financial and insurance with 29 or 16.6%, manufacturing with 18 or 10.3%, wholesale and retail trade with 15 or 8.6%, other services also with 15 or 8.6%, admin and support services with 14 or 8%, and information and communications with 12 or 6.9%. Still, for the descriptive factors, most of the respondents belong to large corporations with 104 or 58.9%, followed by medium corporations with 39 or 22.3%. Around 29 or 16.6% are from small corporations. 23 or 30.7% have been in business for 11 to 20 years, followed by 21 to 30 years with 15 or 20%, and those less than 10 years in operation with 14 or 18.7%. Multiple regression analysis was used to test if the independent variables, leadership and culture, networks and relationships, and change readiness, as well as all three combined, affected rapidity of response. The results of the regression indicated that 22.2% in the variation of rapidity of response can be explained by leadership and culture. 21.3% in the variation of rapidity of response can be explained by networks and relationships. 28.1% in the variation of rapidity of response can be explained by change readiness, and 27.6% in the variation of rapidity of response can be explained by all three variables combined. For the explanation of the beta coefficients, leadership and culture are significant predictors of rapidity of response for private corporations that are 11 to 20, 21 to 30, and 41 to 50 years in business. Networks and relationships are significant predictors of rapidity of response for private corporations that are in the agriculture, forestry, and fishing industry, and those that are 11 to 20, 21 to 30, and 41 to 50 years in business. To continue, change readiness is a significant predictor of rapidity of response for private corporations that are in the financial and insurance industry, and those that are 11 to 20 years, 21 to 30 years, and 41 to 50 years in business. All independent variables are significant predictors of rapidity of response for private corporations that are 11 to 20 years, 21 to 30 years, and 41 to 50 years in business. I will now share with you the conclusion and recommendations. For the conclusion, it can now be concluded that leadership and culture influence rapidity of response, networks and relationships influence rapidity of response, change readiness influences rapidity of response. The study also showed that all independent variables combined influence rapidity of response. Although there is a relationship between the factors and the dimension, the relationship is relatively low since the adjusted R-squared is less than 0.50 or 50%. The study also showed that change readiness can best explain the relationship with rapidity of response. The low R-squared values are supported by Bruce, 2018. Because according to him, studies in the social sciences usually yield to a low R-squared since behavior depends on a complex set of variables and social scientists have difficulty in controlling it. For the recommendations, management of organizations can look into the change readiness factors considering it has the highest R-squared among the other variables. Specifically, organizations can delve deeper into the following. Unity of purpose, which refers to the organization-wide awareness of what the organization's priorities would be following a crisis, clearly defined at the organization level, as well as an understanding of the organization's minimum operating requirements. Proactive posture, which refers to the strategic and behavioral readiness to respond to early warning signals of change in the organization's internal and external environment before they escalate into crisis. Planning strategies, which refers to the development and evaluation of plans and strategies to manage vulnerabilities in relation to the business environment and its stakeholders, and stress testing plans, which refers to the participation of staff in simulations or scenarios designed to practice response arrangements and validate plans. Although the differences among the adjusted R-squared of the three factors are not that significant, Organizational leaders may also address issues about leadership, staff engagement, situation awareness, decision-making, innovation and creativity, effective partnerships, leverage knowledge, breaking silos, and internal resources. That ends the presentation of my research. Thank you very much, and I am now ready to answer your questions, if any.